Good morning, and thank you very much. And afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. Andy and I are still on the West Coast. Um, I want to welcome you to today's webinar with Andy Behar, CEO of As You Sow. As You Sow is the nation's leading nonprofit practitioner of shareholder advocacy and engagement. It is an organization that we've been working closely with around shareholder activism. Andy will speak to this through his presentation, but several of our clients, a whole bunch of our clients, signed on to various shareholder resolutions last year that were the result of As You Sow's work. Andy himself is on the board of the U.S. Forum for Sustainable and Responsible Investing, the advisory boards of Real Impact Tracker and One Earth Institute. In his book, The Shareholder's Action Guide, Unleash Your Hidden Powers to Hold Corporations Accountable, was published in November 2016. So I am going to turn this over to Andy to start, and I'm actually going to put my camera down here in just a second and let you take it away. Thank you, Andy.
Great. Well, thank you, Maggie, and thank you for the invitation to speak, and also just right off the bat, thank you to all of the people who are here, and particularly the Chicory clients are amazing because you folks authorized, I believe it was 75 different actions that As You Sow took, and As You Sow cannot do this work without you. So we really just huge gratitude. So I'm going to show you a slide deck and also take you through our website to show you some of the stuff and really get you to understand what we're up to and how we do it, and also what part you all play in it. So I think you can all see, I'm hoping, a slide that says shareholder power for positive change in the world.
Yep, we can see it. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, great. So I'm going to give you, so our agenda, I'm going to give you a little background about As You Sow, talk about being an empowered shareholder, talk about stakeholder capitalism, which is a very, very important concept, and knowing what you own. So just jump right in. So As You Sow is a 501c3. We're a nonprofit. We're based in Berkeley, California. We've been around since 1992, so closing in on 30 years. And we believe that environmental health and human rights can be improved by shifting corporate policies, that corporations are the most powerful entities on the planet. The World Bank, looking at the 100 largest financial entities on the planet, 69 of those are corporations. Walmart sits right between Canada and Spain at number 10. So when you get a corporation to change its policies and its practices, it ripples through their entire supply chain, through all their employees. You can leverage your power in such an extreme way, and I will give you many examples as we talk today. So these are some of the companies we engage with. Actually, we engage a lot more. This is just sort of a nice, pretty slide. But our name is Corporation Sow. Good environmental, social, and governance policies, they're going to reap increased share value, extended employee retention, improved brand reputation, and reduced risk. That when we come into a company, we come with not only, we see that there's a problem, we see that there's potential risk, but we bring a solution. So the companies, they will speak to us. And the reason is because shareholders have legal standing. They must speak to us. When you're talking about something that's material, and that word material is very important, and what it means is that the information that we're talking about has a deciding role in whether we're going to buy or sell the stock. It's going to affect us financially. So we have the right to ask these kind of questions. And so we do. And we frame everything in that way. So shareholder advocacy. So basically, we come up and talk to a company. So an example would be, we see a report, not by us, but I will show you some of our original research. A company called Monster Beverage. They make those kind of big, giant Red Bull energy drinks. They scored 0 on from a group called Know the Chain. Know the Chain looks at slavery and supply chain. Now, their competitors, their peers, Coke and Pepsi, scored mid-50s, low 60s. They scored 0, dead last among every company, not just beverage companies. So we phoned them up. well, first off, we don't own any shares of anything. So we found a shareholder who owned Monster for a year, at least $2,000 worth. They agreed that they would authorize As You Sow to act on their behalf. So we called up the company and we said, hi, we want to have a conversation about this. Well, they didn't really want to have a conversation, so we sent them a letter. So they finally decided, okay, we'll have a conversation. And I get on the phone with their senior vice president, who is also their top legal counsel. He tells me, look, we just don't really care about this issue. We just don't think slavery and supply chain is an issue for us. And I said, well, it is, because it's an issue for your brand and it's an issue for us as shareholders, and we think there's risk. Anyway, conversation didn't go very well. So we escalated. We filed a shareholder resolution, which is a 500-word document that we submit to the corporate secretary 6 months in advance of the annual meeting. That meant it has to go on their proxy statement. It means every shareholder will vote on it. It means there will be public debate and discussion about it, which means it will associate their brand with their policy and their decision. Now, they could have not gone that way. They could have said, oh my gosh, our mistake, we're going to fix this. How do we do this? And we would have helped them. But they didn't. So what happened is we ended up going to the annual meeting. We ended up getting a vote. It was a 20% vote. And note that these votes are non-binding. So we've had our biggest wins at 6% votes and some of our biggest losses at 99% votes. So you don't get too hung up on the vote. It's just a step on the path. In any case, at the annual meeting, they used to be in person back in the day. I had some time to spend with some of their board members during the coffee break, and they assured me we're going to take care of this. And indeed, they did. A few months after the annual meeting, they hired a consultant. They completely redid their entire supply chain, all of their contracts, and it led to a really good relationship. We now talk to them regularly. I can tell you that we set goals for them. They hit their 2021 numbers at the end of 2019. So that's kind of how it works. So power in numbers. The reason we get these votes is because we go and talk to the big pension funds, the CalPERS, the CalSTRS, the New York City, New York State, as well as all of the shareholders. We put together a coalition of shareholders, all the faith-based groups, the Catholics, the Episcopalians, the Unitarians, all have big endowments and they all vote. Inside outside means that this is more where there's an outside group, like a grassroots group. So we're in the meeting at Starbucks and we're saying that these plastic straws are bad for our brand. Well, outside, Lonely Whale and Greenpeace were protesting. They had big signs and banners and pictures of sea turtles with green straws, stuck in the throats of these poor animals. So we were able to say, look, those people out there are associating our brand with that destructive behavior. We have a solution. So inside outside pressure. Leaders and laggards, this is very, very powerful. And I'll show you in a minute. We'll identify a leader. So for instance, we recently got Kellogg's to agree to stop spraying glyphosate, Roundup, on all their crops before they harvest them. We're going to use that to pressure every other food company to do the same. So once you get a leader to publicly do something, you can bring along all their competitors. And that's how we move an entire sector. And watchdog just means that we come back, we check with the company. As I mentioned with Monster, we talk to them every year now and see how they're doing. So in 2019, we had 93 resolutions, 61 were successfully negotiated. That means that we withdrew them because the company agreed to our terms. 21 went to a vote. We had an average vote of 27%, and about $1 trillion of assets were voted on our resolutions. I'll give you the 2020 numbers in a minute because that's a lot of you folks were involved. Our programs, so climate change, we work with big oil, big gas, coal. We also work with utilities, Duke and Southern, fracking companies. We're working on halting petrochemical plant buildouts, and also we work with banks to stop funding extraction projects. Ocean plastics, we recently got Unilever to cut 100,000 tons of plastic. We got Yum, Dunkin', and McDonald's to eliminate about 4 billion styrofoam cups. Procter & Gamble. So getting companies to make actual measurable change. Environmental health, I mentioned Kellogg's stopping the pre-harvest glyphosate. General Mills, we got them to start to adopt a regenerative agriculture policy. KFC, Wendy's, McDonald's, no antibiotics in chicken. This is actually an interesting story because we decided that we wanted to work on this issue of antibiotics in factory farming. And so we went and talked to the big chicken producers, Sanderson, Tyson, and Purdue. They did not want to talk to us. So they said, take a hike. We did. We took a hike down, talked to their customers, McDonald's, Wendy's, KFC. They didn't really want to talk either. So we've talked to a bunch of mommy and daddy bloggers who were saying publicly, we're not going to let our kids eat McNuggets because of superbugs. Now, superbugs are a result of when animals are eating antibiotics every day in their feed, then what happens is the bacteria evolves. They get the weaker ones die off, the stronger ones evolve. And so you get superbugs. So we got that message amplified a bit more, and we took it to McDonald's and said, look, we have a McNugget crisis. This is a material issue. We're going to lose market share. They reacted by signing a no antibiotics pledge. We took that to Wendy's and KFC and Burger King. They all signed it. We took that upstream to Tyson, Purdue, and Sanderson, and they looked at it and went, oh my God, we have no customers. We have to change. So you can see how we're a small group and we can leverage that process. That was, that was two of my staff working for about 2.5 years to get that achieved. Let's see, let's keep moving. Social justice, we're working on gender equality, equal pay, and the promotion gap. Just this week, we added a racial justice initiative, and we're going to be examining all of the racial justice statements by corporations and putting them into a database and parsing them into key performance indicators and then seeing how the companies actually do on what they've promised. So that's going to become an entire initiative now. Literally just hired somebody. This is her second day. We do a lot of work on child slave labor in Uzbekistan, in Turkmenistan, and now we're also going to be starting to work on the Uyghur situation in China. So, and that's a different kind of a strategy. That's where we bring together like 300 brands to sign a statement. We will not use any cotton harvested by child slave labor or by forced labor. And then we use that. We're actually in negotiations right now with the government of Uzbekistan to change their practices. I'm going to change over here to, I'm just going to show you, just take a brief side trip to show you, make sure you can all see this. Can you see the As You Sow website now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So I'm clicking on Invest Your Values. Now I know you folks are not invested in mutual funds, but just want to show you these tools that we built. When we were working on the Divest Fossil Fuel campaign, we realized very few people knew what was in their portfolio because most people are in 401k plans and they're mutual funds. Now, mutual funds are baskets of stocks. So we built fossil-free funds. And you can go in here and you can type in, for instance, Vanguard. You can see all the Vanguard funds and you can pick one. And what you're going to see here is a breakdown of what's inside of it in terms of fossil fuels. So for instance, these are the 200 largest companies in terms of reserves. So these are called the Carbon Underground 200. This is the coal industry. These are fossil-fired utilities. So a lot of people think they've divested, but they still are holding coal-fired utilities, but they might have sold Exxon. We also look at the carbon footprint of the whole fund. So we've added up the emissions of every company in the fund divided by the dollar amount. So this is 200 tons of carbon per $1 million of US, and you can see it benchmarked against the S&P 500, the Russell 3000, 2000, etc. This is a very carbon heavy fund. But we also look at other things, like we look at deforestation. So the same fund, that same basket of stocks, now put against a list of companies to flag agribusiness, palm oil, paper pulp, rubber, timber, cattle, and soy. That's all the companies there. Banks and lenders. These are banks that fund the destruction of the Indonesian and Amazon rainforest. And companies that use palm oil in their products or use paper pulp, etc., from the Amazon. So it gives you a sense of what's inside of your of your mutual fund. We also look at weapons and we also look at gender equality. We work with a group called Equileap, and we look now at 12 key performance indicators. We're going to actually be bumping this up to 19 key performance indicators. And it's looking at all kinds of things in terms of women on the board, women executives, so women in the workplace, but also equal pay, sexual harassment policies, retaliation policies. So all this is aggregated up. And just one last thing I'm going to show you is that you can also search this. So you can say sort by 5-year performance, but only show me, funds that are that get an A on gender, and it resorts itself. And you can see the ones that are going to get an A. Now you can also look across other issues. So this one that was this Putnam Technology. Well, it's a technology fund, but you can see, across the board, and you can then say, okay, I want to look at this one, and let's go look at its financial performance, etc. And gives you a way to sort things out. So I'm going to pause here and stop sharing for a minute, and just to take a few questions here. And then what I'm going to do is to go back and show you the 2020 season and what's happened to all the companies that you all authorize us to file on, so we can kind of get see the impact that your authorizations, that your involvement have had. But just I want to pause here for some questions.
I have some I want to give anybody on the call a chance to type in a question in the chat if you have any.
If not, I'll continue.
Yeah, one of the things I've noticed I just want to make this comment that and I remember hearing you speak you spoke at the Women's Donor Network conference I was at in, I don't know when, 2 years ago, I think. And I was struck by the initial move here is very much, and actually continues to be, non-adversarial. That is to say, the idea is you're coming in with the shareholder sort of standing, and you really are trying to make, in some cases, pretty good companies better. In some cases, terrible companies at least a little better. And so, I'm just noticing that approach, and I think it's a great approach. It seems like it's brought you.
But we're shareholders. We want them to succeed. It's our
right, exactly.
Why would we want them to fail? We want them to succeed, and we believe, and this is where I'm going to get into this whole idea of stakeholder capitalism, that when you take care of your employees, when you treat them well, then you're going to avoid the cost of having to recruit and retrain somebody new. That's the biggest cost that companies have. If you treat your communities well, you're going to avoid litigation. I mean, if you decide you're going to dump toxins in the water supply and it gets into the into the city water supply, that's not going to be good. That's just going to be expensive. It's going to be distracting, and it's going to associate bad things with your brand. If you look at your supply chain, if you have slavery in supply chain, I can tell you that did not work out well for Nike. I mean, you can remember the companies that had slavery in their supply chain. Their brand never, ever loses that they're tarnished. And also, if you take care of your customers, if you sell products that have toxins in them and you poison your customers, I mean, you can't believe the conversation we had at Kellogg's. We presented to their board and we said, look, you have an opportunity. There's all these lawsuits around glyphosate that are literally winning $200 million, $400 million, $2 billion in settlements. That's for people spritzing a little Roundup in their backyard to knock the weeds down. You're putting it in every bowl of Special K. People are eating it every day. Don't you want to say Kellogg's makes food that's safe to eat? It's an opportunity for you. None of your other competitors are doing this. It took them about 2 years and a little more pressure, and they came around to it and they said, that idea of not poisoning our customers, that's a good idea. I like that. And they adopted it. No, but here's the thing. That's called leadership, because no one else is even close. And we're going to use that. Actually, let me share a screen. I'm going to show you some.
Go for it.
This will kind of tie up that. Let me see. Just this notion. Tell me that you can see the As You Sow website.
Yes.
Good. Okay, great. So I'm going here under reports. And I'm going to show you, this is, so here's a report. I'm going to get to this in a minute. This just came out last Wednesday. This is looking at 50 companies on 35 key performance indicators. This is a report on fugitive methane. This is about the 100 most overpaid CEOs. These are our reports just in the last 5 months.
Right.
So we do a lot of original research. So looking at pesticides in the pantry, and I'm clicking on this data visualization tool. Now what you're going to see here is 14 food companies, major food companies, that we have ranked on 8 key performance indicators. So you can see General Mills scored 18 out of 30. They're the best. You can see Pepsi, 14 out of 30. This is the aggregated score. But you can go in and just look at like one score, like pesticide reduction, and you can see most of them get zeros. Now I'm going to click on General Mills, and that's going to take you to another page that shows you all the detailed information that we got. And this is from a survey with General Mills as well as publicly available information. So you can see all the scores. I particularly like this radar chart. You can sort of see where things are. These are all the key performance indicators. But what gets really interesting, this is how we decide what to talk to companies about. So I'm going to overlay Pepsi. So now we're going to look at Pepsi overlaid with General Mills. And so this tells us that when we go talk to Pepsi, they've got nothing on pesticide reduction, nothing on regenerative agriculture, nothing here. But they outperform General Mills on integrated pest management. So when we talk to General Mills, we're going to say, why aren't you as good as Pepsi? When we talk to Pepsi, we're going to say, why aren't you as good as General Mills? And the goal here, just so you understand, why do we pick certain companies? It's because this chart, when we do this report again in 2 years, we expect the lowest score to be 10, and we expect some companies to hit 30. And that's how we move an entire sector. So, similarly, I can show you, it's a little more complex, but this is the plastics report. Again, just came out just literally days ago. And this is looking at 50 companies on 35 key performance indicators. So you'll see it's a little bit more dense, but the same idea of so Unilever scored a B-. That's the best company out of all of them. There's very little leadership here. And again, you can sort this by, let's just look at the beverage sector, or let's just look at the consumer packaged goods sector, etc. And anyway, so this is how we kind of break things up. But let's just go in and look a little deeper at Unilever. Again, I happen to like these radar charts. And let's compare Unilever and, I don't know, Tim Hortons and Walmart. I'm literally randomly picking them. But you can get a sense of where the companies sit on different issues. And so this helps us to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to address them. So let's get into the resolutions, because that's I think what people are interested in. So these are all the current resolutions. It's under the resolution tab. They come up alphabetically listed, but if you want to look at one company, you can do that, and you can also say, show me for the last 10 years. I'm going to click on initiative to sort them so we can see. So starting with the A's, antibiotics and factory farm. This is going beyond poultry. We're now talking to Costco, Walmart, and Wendy's about beef and pork. I don't think any of you signed on to those. Home Depot, a bunch of you did. A bunch of you were very interested in Home Depot, and we got a 26.4% vote. So what this was about is, so this is about CEO pay. And as you saw, we do this report called the 100 Most Overpaid CEOs of the S&P 500. We've been doing it now for 6 years. Every year, every February, we publish it. And so Home Depot, we wanted to make a specific point about how senior executives retain a significant percentage of shares acquired through equity. Let's not get into too much into the weeds, but we got a good vote, and we believe we're going to see some change at Home Depot. We're going to keep talking to them. So after the vote, the vote is not the end. The vote is just a step on the path. That, again, it starts with a conversation, starts with a letter, it escalates to a resolution. we file a resolution, sometimes we withdraw it, sometimes it goes to a vote. After the vote, we have another conversation. If we don't like what we're hearing, we'll go to a vote again in next November. I mean, we'll file again. Sometimes we're very, very tenacious. Some of these, to get to where the company actually changes a policy and practice, sometimes we're at it for, well, there's some that we're at it for a decade in the oil industry.
Right.
And we're escalating. And sometimes we escalate to litigation. Sometimes we escalate to trying to get no confidence votes on the board. So we just continue. We only see this as steps on the path until the companies actually change their policies and actually implemented it over long term. Climate change, so a bunch of banks, Bank of America, Barclays, you'll see there's more banks, BP, Chevron, Devon. I just want to just check this. This is the list of you guys, Amazon, BlackRock, Home Depot. This is the list of all of the Chicory, Target, a lot of Target. Okay, just so I can remember.
Right.
So climate change, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we had a number of people sign existing resolutions. I think we even maybe had one client who was like, there's a distinction between the person the shareholders who file the resolutions and then the people who sign on. Is that right? Am I getting that right? I'm trying to remember can you?
There's three classifications. So the SEC requires one lead share owner. So that is the person called the lead share owner. And I don't know that any of your clients signed on as the lead, but then we also have three co-filers. Now, those are all listed in the SEC documents. Those you need to have proofs of ownership. It's much more stringent. And then everybody else who wants to be part of it, they sign a letter of support. Now, the letter of support is something that As You Sow created. That happened about 2 years ago for two reasons. One, people wanted to be anonymous. They didn't want to be listed in an SEC filing. And number two is there's a group that is trying to take away shareholder rights. And one of their reasons is because it's onerous for the company to process all of this paperwork. And we had sent in like 20 co-filers. I think it was Starbucks. And it is a huge amount of paperwork for the company. So we decided that we would listen to that complaint, we would acknowledge it, and we limited our number of co-filers going forward to 3, which takes away that argument for them to try to take away our rights. So there's 3 classifications, but if you signed the letter of support, the company got that. They got the letter, they got the list of these are all bona fide shareholders. They all are in support of this. They're all going to be voting for this resolution. And when we go into engagements, I got to tell you, when we tell the company that there's 40 people who have signed this, and plus they take notice. They really do take notice. The investor relations people. So it's really a powerful statement, and that's why we have huge gratitude for everybody who signed on to all of these in whatever form. Because again, we don't own any shares. We could not file the resolution with Exxon without share owners. Now, Exxon, I regret to say, was blocked by the SEC. Now, what that means is
speak to that. Yeah, please.
So you filed the resolution. The company says, you know what? We don't think you should have filed that resolution. And there's 3 reasons that they can give. 1 is it's ordinary business. 2, it's substantially implemented. And 3, it's called micromanagement. Now, micromanagement is brand new. They just invented that last year to have sort of a catch-all. I can tell you that we have filed 19 resolutions at Exxon starting in 2010, and every single one Exxon has opposed at the SEC. We have won, out of the 19, I think we've won 16. This year, we did not win. Interestingly, the same resolution at Chevron that was challenged, we won. So the SEC and how they're defended, it's a very gray area that they don't tell you why they decided it either. There's no precedence. It's a difficult area, but But I can tell you in a minute, because most of you, a lot of you signed on to BlackRock, that we beat BlackRock at the SEC. Let me get to that
Yeah,
one. So climate change, a ton of banks, getting the banks to stop funding oil extraction projects. Duke is coal, consumer packaging. Let's see. This is an interesting one, actually. The one at waste management. So 2 years ago, China said, we're not taking your plastic anymore. They had been taking it and recycling it and turning it into products. And so the US said, what? And it starts piling up at the docks because the US never built a recycling system, like a national recycling system, like they have in Europe. I mean, Denmark, they recycle about 90% of their products. Here we recycle about 15%. That's because we didn't build a system. Now we tried to get a system built. So we asked Waste Management, where are the gaps in the US system? And we withdrew the resolution in exchange for them spending the resources to actually map out the entire thing, tell us where's the low-hanging fruit. If you built a MRF there, if you built a recycling center there, if you had transportation there, that you could suddenly up that number from 15 to 40%. Like, what's the plan? And so we're actually working with the largest waste hauler in the United States to develop the plan. And that's in rather than just saying you guys stink, we're saying let's work together to find a solution. We are about solutions. Yum, I think I told you, they agreed to stop using styrofoam in 6,700 global stores. Styrofoam across the board, across the world. BlackRock, interesting one. So last August, the Business Roundtable, which is basically the 200 largest, the CEOs of the largest corporations, got together and they issued a statement called the New Purpose of a Corporation. Now, what this said was 50 years of Milton Friedman's concept of shareholder primacy is no longer valid. Now, shareholder primacy means a company can abuse their employees, they can dump in the commons, they can have slaves in their supply chain, they can poison their customers, so long as you're doing it to make a profit for your shareholders. Well, guess what? 50 years ago, the first Episcopal ministers and Jesuit priests and nuns filed the first resolutions at GM about apartheid. That was about employees. And have been, all of us have been talking about stakeholder capitalism since then. So there's been this clash of philosophies on what is a corporation about. And the shareholder advocacy group has been firmly in stakeholder land, and the corporations have been firmly in shareholder land. Well, out of the blue comes this Business Roundtable statement. We agree with you guys. You guys are right. Look at the world. Our environment is trashed. Our social fabric is ripped. Yeah, maybe we got it wrong. Gosh, sorry about that. So we said, bravo, thank you. Thank you for admitting you were wrong and that we were correct. And now, how are we going to implement this? Well, we called up a bunch of companies and we said, thank you so much for signing that. That's wonderful. What's your implementation plan? Are you going to be making it legally binding? You're going to be putting it in your bylaws. You're going to be inviting employees onto your board. What about you're going to be inviting customers and supply chain onto your board, or at least in an advisory position? We started asking questions, and we called up BlackRock, the world's largest investor, $7 trillion in assets. And we asked them these questions and they said, oh, we signed the paper, we're done. And we went, well, that's a nice statement of intention, but what about implementation? And they said, we don't know what you mean. So we went to a vote, and I got to present at the BlackRock meeting. There was the only resolution there. So I was the only non-BlackRock person speaking. And I got to ask the board and Larry Fink, how do you make words into actions? How do you do this? Why is BlackRock voting for every egregious CEO pay package and against every climate resolution? Why are you not standing with shareholders to tell the SEC that we don't like that they're taking away our rights, your rights, the rights of BlackRock shareholders? Like, I said, I have cognitive dissonance. Shareholders have cognitive dissonance over this. So, anyways, very interesting meeting. After I spoke, one of the BlackRock board actually said, Mr. Behar's presentation was so cogent. Why don't we support this resolution? And Larry Fink answered, because we've already implemented it. We signed the document. So therein lies the issue.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is going to be, we see an emerging new economic paradigm based on justice and sustainability. It's happening. Kellogg's decided to be a leader. They're not going to spray their wheat, oats, and beans with poison anymore. And I believe that people are going to start to put their money in Kellogg, and they're going to start to buy Kellogg products, and that the companies who don't follow that path are the ones that they're going to say, no, we're sticking to our extractive, destructive paradigm. They're going to go out of business. They simply will not be in existence a few years from now. And the ones who decide to adopt the stakeholder capitalism ideas, ESG ideals, justice and sustainability ideas, and build a regenerative economy, that will be the economy. And so we're seeing this schism right now, and it's just this amazing moment in time that we're actually creating, all of us, everybody on this call, you are part of creating this new economic paradigm.
I wanted to just insert here. I think you're absolutely right, of course, and that's sort of the business model for investors at Chicory. But just for those who don't know what BlackRock does or who BlackRock is, really, BlackRock is their biggest business, or a huge portion of their business, is the creation of exchange traded funds. They are the iShares. They're the background of iShares. And if you own an exchange traded fund as an investor, some of you have in the past, some of you still have, we still have a few extraneous ones left in our portfolios. You have no standing as you can't sign a resolution. BlackRock votes your proxies. Mm-hmm. BlackRock being enormous. I'm not sure, Andy, you might know if BlackRock is the largest stakeholder of index funds, probably followed very closely by a Vanguard, right? There's and so
yeah,
what's
BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are basically, but right. BlackRock is the number one. Yes.
Number one. So as people invest more and more in a sense, nameless, faceless ETFs, right, which they have their role as from an investment standpoint, individuals give up their power and really hand that power to an entity like BlackRock, because BlackRock is who votes the proxies. Am I correct?
Well, not only that. Well, yes, it's exactly correct. But not only that, but you own the entire market, and so you own
all kinds of.
Well, you own cluster munitions and landmines and fossil fuels and, and burning down the Amazon, and companies that are just completely negative to gender equality and diversity. I mean, you own the entire extractive, destructive economy.
Right, exactly.
Basically, that's what you're buying into. And everybody, and there's $8.5 trillion owned by 100 million people in their 401k plan that own the entire current economic paradigm, and they don't know it. So we're actually doing a big initiative right now, is to get all of the employees of the S&P 500 to realize what they own. And we're going to be putting out a report card on every 401k plan in the S&P 500. We're running pilots this year, and then early next year we'll be rolling out those report cards. Because if you're an employee at Google, you walked off the job because you didn't want to invest in military contracts, but you own United Technology, you own Grumman, you own Raytheon. You just don't know it.
Exactly.
If you're at Amazon and, they're doing a great job, we have an electric vehicle fleet, and we've taken our data centers to renewables. Yeah, but you're also invested in Duke and Southern and First Energy and Exxon and Chevron, and you don't know it. That's the thing, is that there's this level of just ignorant complicity that we're going to try to remove through education and transparency. That's our job. So that's anyway, I'm going to continue down this list just to you guys are looking, just to finish up. So diversity and gender equality. This one is incredibly interesting, because in 2018 we started in on this, and we said, there's no data. We don't have any data. So we got investors to sign an investor statement, and we got 1.73 trillion of assets to sign it, saying diversity is a material issue. Therefore, you must disclose this. And we sent it to 3,000 companies. And we then followed up with 31 companies across 5 sectors. And we asked them, you have no disclosure. Oh, this is material. Well, a bunch of them said, you're right, we're going to disclose. We filed resolutions with 12. Another group called NIA is filed with 9. Anyway, 20 of them were withdrawn because the companies agreed. One went to a vote, got a 70% vote. So I believe that we're going to start seeing a lot more data on diversity. We found that a bunch of companies were doing incredible things and others didn't have a clue. So we're going to see much more information about diversity. Now we're going to be linking that to our work on racial justice that we're just starting. So that's all like really in the mix and very, very current. Told you about Kellogg's and GMOs. Facebook, what can I say about Facebook?
Yeah, right.
What can I say? Mark Zuckerberg just I don't know. He just like went over to the dark side and he's just thinks he's Darth Vader or something. I don't know. I mean, no, I mean, this is an entity that was created to bring people together, and it's done nothing but rip people apart. And he just keeps saying, yeah, but they're looking at our ads. I just don't get it. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Materiality, this is just about, will you disclose along the lines of SASB, the Sustainable Accounting Standard Board? This is a new way of disclosure that I've been working on for about 8 years. And basically we got every company to agree. And the ones who didn't, we got, look at this, 61, 79. We got 3 majority votes on this. So these ocean plastics, about petrochemicals. Believe it or not, these 3 resolutions, this is about, we don't think it's a great idea to build a new petrochemical plant in a known flood zone where a previous petrochemical plant was washed away by the last hurricane. Okay.
Yeah, you think there would be a material issue too, right? It's not just stupid. It's like
I just like, aren't these people like professional, like smart, like it just seems like so obvious. But anyway, we got a majority vote at Philips. So a majority of the Philips shareholders said, yeah, let's not spend $6 billion on a new asset that's going to get washed away in the first rain. Coca-Cola, that's in your guys' neighborhood.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's about political spending, and let's skip that one. That's a little complicated. Anyway, let me stop sharing and leave some time for questions.
Yeah. So Anne had a question. Anne, you said, are you finding that our eyes off the ball right now? If you want to unmute yourself, Anne, and just, you can keep your camera off, but if you want to elaborate on what you mean by that question or what you're asking, I wasn't quite sure. Can you unmute? Do you know how to unmute? Let's see. Can I unmute you? Anne, are you there? Maybe Anne doesn't want to ask that question. Maybe Anne left. I'm not sure.
No, she's there. Why don't you just read what she wrote?
But she added, she elaborated. Did you see that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Oh, here we are. Excuse me, Anne, I apologize. Anne says, we're not thinking about how our money is being spent, worrying more about COVID. Is it an opportunity for corporations to not listen to all of these important issues? I think this goes to the heart of like, what can we trust in terms of change? And I guess I want to use that question to jump off and say, when we were talking to you yesterday or the day before, I think, Andy, in preparation for this, you were talking to Liz and I, and you seemed extremely optimistic. And so I guess I want to give you an opportunity to speak to Anne's question and then and more. Yeah.
COVID gives us an opportunity to, when we talk to companies, we can say without question that if you make your decisions based on science and data, you will have better outcomes. When you look at the data across 21 countries, 8 of them followed the path of science, and they had, and the rest of them, the 18, the 21, anyway, eight of them followed the path of science. 13 followed what we can call magical thinking. Oh, this is just going to go away, just like climate change is just going to go away. The 8 that said, let's follow science, had 20% of the deaths, literally 1/5 of the deaths. And they are now in economic recovery. The other ones are still dealing with it and have, so I believe the learning from COVID is you make your decisions based on science and on data. And it's unquestionable. And you can apply this now to climate change. You can apply this to toxins in food. You can apply this to racial equality. It's you follow the data. And those are the companies that do that are the ones that will be getting much more support. The ones with the magical thinking, the oil companies that say, oh yeah, demand will keep on increasing, even though all the data says the opposite, are the ones that investors are going to start moving their money away from. That this is part of the emergence of the regenerative economy. So that's my takeaway from COVID. That yes, it's painful. That yes, that people are dying, but the note is that people are dying, particularly in the United States, unnecessarily. That our leaders are just either they're just completely blind to the idea of science and data. So I think that it's going to be a big transformation in our thinking.
I think Ann's question, though, is also, I think Ann, if you're letting me speak for you here for a second, there's a kind of suspicion embedded in the question, which is, can we really trust that corporations are really going to listen to these important issues? I guess I would frame it like, do you believe, as someone who's been working in this for a very long time, that real change is being made? You're seeing tangible change. It's not just sort of greenwashing or marketing, that there's an actual shift happening. I think that's the heart of the question.
So change begins with ideas and with words. So the idea of signing stakeholder capitalism. The World Economic Forum also signed up for stakeholder capitalism by announcing a new manifesto and the emergence, the beginning of a fourth industrial age. Now, the World Economic Forum Business Roundtable are saying that companies that follow these ideas of taking care of all their stakeholders are the ones that will succeed. To me, that is a philosophical framework that we are going to be using. And that just happened in January. We're only 5 months into the new industrial age. And yes, there are companies that are actually making absolutely tangible changes. And there's other ones that are saying, no way, I'm sticking with the old paradigm. And they are just heading for their own self-destruction. So it's too early to judge how much of this is greenwashing and how much of it is aspirational thinking. But I think the conversations we're having with BlackRock show that a lot of companies think you can just sign up for something, but shareholders are now amassing power. We're all becoming aware. When every shareholder realizes the power that they have and that they've been abdicating because they didn't even know they had the power, when we all get together and we all start to vote against boards of directors, if we have to, we will take over companies, because that is the nature of this struggle. And the people out on the street right now asking about, talking about racial injustice, they're finding that they have power, and shareholders are finding that they have power, not only in terms of what they own as shareholders, but also how you bank, the products you buy.
Right, exactly.
A huge amount of power that if it actually, that as we come together and we start to move our money in a specific way, these companies will either cease to exist and the good ones will be the only ones left to define the economy. So I believe that this is the time, this is the moment of this great transition, and that COVID and that the uprising, the racial injustice uprising, are all part of this transition.
Yes. I mean, I believe it too. I couldn't believe it more. I mean, that's sort of like my life's work, is helping people move money in a way that makes change for real. I feel very deeply committed to that. And as you know, being able to partner with you guys, at a lot of levels, not just in terms of helping our clients engage, but just informationally. For example, I shared this with you right ahead of the meeting. The mutual fund evaluator, that format that's on your website. We meaning Chicory Wealth's own 401k, we were really unhappy with the choices. We couldn't get new choices in the existing 401k. We are literally right now in the process of moving our 401k to a new provider. And we chose, because you have to use funds inside of a 401k, you can't buy individual stocks. We chose our funds using that. I went to your, I looked at MSCI, our ESG database, looked at a universe there, and then came back through and looked at the fund choices through your website in order to determine which funds we were going to use in our own 401k. And I think the 401k, I want to say the 401k universe is enormous. If we could start to shift choices, fund choices inside of 401ks, that's...
Well, like I said, we're in the process now of speaking to every employee in the S&P 500, because we're going to be doing a report card on, is your 401k aligned with the company's sustainability goals? Is it aligned with the company's racial justice goals? And did I mention we're adding prison-free funds? We're right now, that will go live on August 12th. And that's going to look at companies involved with private prisons, companies that use slave prison labor in their products, because people just don't realize that they are complicit, that they are part of the prison industrial complex, because there's no way for them to find out. It's been hidden from them for years. That's why we built these tools. We built them because we had to. When we were working on Divest Fossil Fuels, there was no way to get that information. And I have to tell you, this is a true story. We were part of the group that wrote the divestment pledge. So of course we signed it, which said we will divest our fossil fuels. And at that point, I remember being in my office and going like, I don't have any idea what's in my own 401k plan. I'm going to check. And I couldn't figure it out. It took me 2 weeks to even get a sense of it, because there's no data. The prospectus only shows you the top 10 holdings, and the fund might have 700 holdings. And then you go to the SEC website and all the information's out of date. You call up the fund managers. They won't tell you because it's proprietary. And I was like, what is going on? And one of our staffers, I was talking to him about this, and I was so frustrated and angry. And he wrote some code, like literally over the weekend, to help us figure out our own 401k plan within As You Sow. And once we did that, we're like, we should share this with other people. And that's how Fossil Free Funds was born. It was purely out of necessity. It was not that we had a brilliant idea. It was just, if we can't figure it out, who can?
It's really well done in terms of how you can search and it's actually visually very helpful. A lot of what's difficult about this universe, at least I experienced this as I got deeper and deeper into it, is there's so much information. It can get very detailed. What do these terms mean, et cetera, et cetera. And so, anything that the visual piece makes it easier for people to see. And I think just, educational opportunities like this one, get people more and more familiar with this intersection. Because for a lot of people, the investing, the whole money universe for many people is just completely separated from their actual values. Of course, we're in the business of trying to unite these things, and more people are trying to unite these things. But I think a whole generation just said, "Oh, well, I can't be bothered with that."
Think about the trends. US SIF is coming out with a new trends report. I was on a webinar yesterday. I was moderating with Meg from US SIF. So 10 years ago, 1 out of every $12 was invested with an environmental, social, and governance lens. Last year, it was 1 out of every $4. I can tell you for sure that when the new report comes out in about 2 months, it's going to be way more than 1 out of every 4. And so what we're seeing is what used to be kind of an outlier, the idea of socially responsible investing. What we're going to see beginning this year is that there's going to be investing, and then there's going to be irresponsible investing.
Exactly.
And more, the irresponsible investing is going to become more and more marginal. And that's, of course, it makes sense. Why would you invest in an irresponsible company? They're just going to, they have more risk. ESG to me, it comes down to one word, which is risk. That's all it is. It's, do you want to avoid risk, or do you want more risk?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I think that the question, the choice is very simple for any fiduciary. You want to reduce risk, and you can do that now. There's enough companies in every sector that have also decided we want to reduce risk.
Right. Right. Exactly. Well, Andy, this has been extremely helpful. Thank you for your time. I don't see any more questions, but I thank you all for hanging on with us today and joining. This is recorded, so we will be sending out the recording for other folks to look at. But again, very much appreciate your
And
time.
just huge gratitude to you and to all of your clients who authorize us to file on their behalf, because we could not do our work without you and without them. So just
Well,
really
we look
huge
forward
gratitude.
to being your continued partner in this for sure.
Excellent.
So thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Be well, be safe, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all. Take care. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.